The Montgomery County High School Game of the Week is brought to you by Video on Location, your premier source for all of your video needs. Come to Video on Location.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Scott Wyckoff along with John Waymuller, and it's the inaugural weekly webcast that we'll be doing on VOLiSPorts.com. Join us every Tuesday night, straight up, 7 o'clock. We will bring you 1/2 hour of all that's going on in Montgomery County football. We'll take a look back at the past week. We'll look ahead to what's going on in the future, and also take your questions. So anytime tonight you want to get a question in of myself or John, just right below, as you'll see, you can put in your question, email it to us, put your name on it, let us know, and we'll answer them. Right off the bat, we have a question from Debbie in Silver Spring, who asks, when we do the VOLI Sports Game of the Week, how do we pick the game that you'll be seeing coming up in a half hour on NCPS 33 and 35? Right now, the first few games of the season, John, are selected so we can map out and try to get a lot of the different high schools from Montgomery County on. But the last 3 weeks of the season, people can vote for the best games.
Yeah, it's up to them, and you'll get to see either the most important playoff matchups, or maybe get to vote in your school and get to see your team play. So, very exciting opportunity for the last 3 games of the regular season.
Coming up at 7:30 on NCPS 33 and also on Channel 35, you'll be able to see the game that we broadcast this week, Seneca Valley in Northwest. Coming up next week after our webcast, you'll be able to see another big game, kind of an inter-divisional rivalry, Rockville and Bethesda going at it, Whitman and Wooten. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight, and also, again, get your questions in if you have questions for us. It was a big first week, now our second week into Montgomery County football, and as you look at some of the scores as they come across, not a lot of surprises, but starting to see some trends. Of course, Clarksburg had a great season last year. Again, they start out, it's not surprising that they're able to hand it to Blake.
No, they're off to a 2-0 start. Obviously, they went 10-0 in the regular season last year, ran all the way to the state semifinals. Looks like they're off to a good start again. I know Coach Hurd is not altogether happy with their performance a little bit in the last couple games. Some turnovers, some mistakes, very uncharacteristic. The things they weren't doing last year, but they'll get those things ironed out, and they should be in good shape.
New coaching staff, same result. Damascus easily able to take Einstein. I know they're building kind of a new era of the program there, John, but the same thing, they keep winning.
Yeah, you just said it. It's a new era. It's a completely new generation, all new players. In their first 2 games, they've come out like gangbusters, so absolutely no chink in the armor, it doesn't look like, in Damascus. They head into a big game, obviously, this week at Quince Orchard, and that'll be sort of a true measuring stick for them, I think.
For Gaithersburg, not wanting to say that they're a team that's flown under the radar the last several years, but they've had some outstanding teams, some outstanding players that have gone on to play Division I, and they knock off Wheaton 28-7. And do you think that might be a team at Gaithersburg that maybe in week 7 or 8 that people are going to be able to vote for their games to get in because they're going to be knocking on the door of the possibility of a run in the playoffs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. They certainly think they've got the team to do it this year. They've got another one of those college players in defensive end Sean Stanley, who's verbally committed to Penn State. I think, Gaithersburg just missed out on the playoffs on points last year. They were in the 2 years before that and lost in the first round. I think this is the year they really want to kind of take that next step and become a power in the county again.
I know a bit disappointing for the folks in Silver Spring as you see Kennedy getting off to a slow start this year, a new coaching leadership there, trying to rebuild a program that was built, and sometimes that's tough. You get excited about what you had. They had a couple of great back-to-back seasons going into the playoffs, but a bit of a tough start this year.
Yeah, and no need to panic yet in Silver Spring. Obviously, it is going to take a little bit of time, but different situation than Damascus, where you see Damascus reloading. It really is a full rebuilding job in Kennedy. The 2 people who brought them such success over the past 2 seasons were the head coach Gunnar Twiner and the quarterback Melvin Harris, and obviously both of those folks are gone now. So a little bit of an adjustment period for Kennedy, and this was foreseeable.
And I know Debbie had sent us our first email question. I'm sure she's very interested in this. The battle of Silver Spring, Blair knocking off Northwood. We talk about some neighborhood rivalries. There's some people who live right next door to Blair, and their kids end up going to Northwood. And how about Blair? Are they for real? This is a program that struggled recently, but a program that seems as though they got some athletes this year.
Yeah, 0-10 last year. Did not win a game. They're 2-0 this year. They've scored over 40 points in both games. And we talked about a little bit about Gaithersburg earlier. Again, this week is definitely the test for Blair. We will find out if they're for real because they go to Gaithersburg.
One team that we know is definitely for real is Sherwood. You've seen both of their games to start this season, and they have done everything that everyone thought they would do in those first two games.
Right. Coach Thomas came into the season talking about looking to find playmakers, and they found instead of one or two playmakers, I think about 8 or 9. Zach Splain, the quarterback, is spreading the ball around to lots of different people. He's looked really impressive, very efficient in both games. He's got 7 touchdown passes already, and that defense, they haven't allowed a point yet. The 6 points they've allowed this year were on a punt return, a punt return. And Sherwood always starts the season off by shutting people out, but I think that defense is going to be special all year.
Anytime you win a state championship, folks are always looking for a lot from you the next season, especially when you have so many players coming back like Quince Orchard does. And I know some people looking at the score right now that Quince Orchard had in the first couple games, they knock off Churchill 25-6, but people are thinking like, well, how about 50 points? How about 60 points with all the players they have?
Yeah, I think the week 1 score is really what kind of jumped out and bit some people. They had to score late in the fourth quarter to beat Wooten, and nobody's going to feel too sorry for Quince Orchard, but they are in sort of a unique situation. It's very heady, going undefeated last season and having so much Division I college attention on your players and so many high expectations that Coach McRaney and his staff actually do have a job to do there this year. Just kind of keeping kids' heads on an even keel and. Maybe these first 2 results aren't where some people thought the scores would be, but it's 2 wins. Quince Orchard will take it, and they'll be fine.
Our season opener on our VOLI Sports Game of the Week was the Rockville Rams. They have now gone 2-0. A nice start to the season for Mark Maraday and his coaching staff as they're really trying to rebuild a Rockville football culture that in the past has won. In the past few years leading up to this group of coaches, struggled a little bit, but they've come out like gangbusters first 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, made the playoffs last year. I don't think they expect any drop-off at all this year. Certainly, this week's game, they go into Einstein, and that'll be an interesting test because even though they made the playoffs last year, they still remember in the back of their mind that Einstein actually nipped them early in the season last year. So they'll be looking for some revenge and to build on that for the coming season.
I know after losing in week 1 against their big rival, Magruder, glad to get on the board and get a win in week 2, and everybody feeling better this week in Durwood after getting a big win in the second week after going up against good Sherwood team in week 1.
Yeah, kind of an ugly win, actually. Coach Miller told me they put the ball on the ground 9 times in that game and lost 3 fumbles. But a win is a win, and it's just Magruder's pattern to kind of get better as the season goes along the past few years, and I think you'll see that again this year.
We'll talk a little bit more about Whitman coming up as we preview next week's game. That'll be the VOLI Sports Game of the Week as they take on Wooten. Bullis knocking off Sidwell Friends, and a lot of kids that grew up together ended up splitting up, right. Going to Bullis and to Sidwell Friends, and that's always a big game early in the season. I know a big win for the folks at Bullis.
Yeah, league rivals on the girls' side, obviously kind of a non-league game for football, but Bullis will be glad to get that win because, again, sort of like Kennedy, like Damascus, that's a team where you didn't really know what the identity was going to be this year, and to get that first win under the belt for a new coaching staff has got to feel nice there.
Also, for Good Counsel, it's been a quick start to a season where they want to do big things. They're always looking down the road, of course, to their league games and the Catholic Conference, and also looking at that big game every year against DeMatha. But you got to win the games getting there, and so far so good.
Yeah, outscoring opponents 84-12 so far. Looks like their heads haven't been turned by any of the hype this year. Caleb Porzell's doing it on the ground. Jelani Jenkins doing it on defense. Everything's kind of going according to plan so far for Good Counsel.